Hooah! How's it going, folks? How are you doing, Shalini?
Oh, God.
That good, eh? Well, we're here today talking about Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald. Interesting?
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Yeah. Movie that we saw several weeks ago in theaters. It's a good time. It's a nice little outing. 4D experience. So we saw it. We had the 3D glasses on, but then we also sat in the magical chairs. Maybe worth the ticket price once in a while. You know, this is an interesting episode because Shalini and I are really big Harry Potter fans.
Mm-hmm.
Not That's just books, not just read the books several times, not just watched every movie several times. Hundreds of times, I think, actually.
Probably, yeah.
Probably thousands, actually. Yeah, like merchandise.
I read Order of Phoenix in 3 days when I was like 11.
Yeah, which is...
You know, that's the monster book. It's 956 pages.
Fairly insane feat to accomplish. Especially for a kid, too. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, well.
It's, again, just kind of weird because we're really big fans of this universe. Mm-hmm. But this film was a little bit of a challenge for us. A little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, so you probably get it from the title of this video.
This rant.
Yeah, no.
This diatribe.
As we've said, we appreciated the experience of it. The acting was amazing. Obviously, the cinematography is really cool. We get to explore more of the Potter wizarding universe. It's really good as sort of an entertainment unit, if you would say.
Yes.
But we would just like to investigate the actual purpose of Fantastic Beasts in the midst of what we know about Harry Potter and that series, and talk about the meta themes of Fantastic Beasts. Why this time and place? What does it add to our understanding of Harry Potter?
Why and what's the point of this sub-series?
Yeah. It was just organically coming up in our conversations about the presence of Fantastic Beasts in this movie and its conjunction with this other sort of like huge plot with Grindelwald and Dumbledore. And we're just kind of like, why are these like two non-conforming plots put in together in this like series? And it just seems like too much to put in to a single movie, at least for Crimes of Grindelwald. And then we also talked about the reveals of sort of Harry Potter knowledge, the Easter eggs, everything like that. And we were just kind of like, why the 1930s? Why are we talking about Newt Scamander and Grindelwald together? And why is it the specific time and place in the Harry Potter world that we're exploring in these movies?
Yeah, it seems like a very awkward pairing. But I think the reason why this might have been done, and obviously we can talk about this a bit further, but the titular character of this film installment is kind of an allegory for Adolf Hitler. Yeah. I think not kind of, is a direct allegory for Adolf Hitler.
Basically.
And the rise of Nazi Germany. It's set in the 1920s and 30s, this
I think so. Yeah, it's like the mid... Films. I think 1936?
It's the interwar period, so it hasn't... World War II has not begun yet.
And Grindelwald actually brings up World War I. In his speech, like, this is what no mages have done, and this is what they're going to do in World War II, and I'm here to stop it.
It's very, like, unambiguous in terms of wanting to be a direct reference to that.
I mean, the fact that he has a silver tongue, he's very persuasive, and the fact that he is defeated in 1945 just as Hitler. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting parallel that J.K. Rowling puts in. And that kind of brings up the question of what is the purpose of having yet another story where the villain is a Hitler allegory. I mean, we kind of explored the idea of Saruman being a Hitler allegory in a previous podcast. So this kind of theme does pop up in a lot of films. You can see it in Marvel and all sorts of other places. So it's not like it's a novel idea that they really wanted to bring to the screen.
Presence of fantastic beasts. My question is, where are they in this movie? There's not really a whole lot of attention paid to them. They don't get a lot of screen time. But the trajectory that we're anticipating is that it's going to be a lot more intense regarding the whole Grindelwald evil guy aspect of the story. Not the, oh, look, there's Newt Scamander, and these are his magical creatures that he's looking after in his suitcase bag thing.
Yeah.
I was kind of disappointed. It just seems like they don't really have any other purpose but to kind of be comic relief in the midst of this really kind of a depressing story, very intense, and with all the World War II Holocaust-esque references that are here.
Yeah. They killed a kid. In Paris. They just murdered a family and a child. It's like, are you bringing your 8-year-olds to this?
Yeah.
To see beasts? Because it ain't about the beast here. The beast is in the man.
There's just a weird non-congruence. There's like this silly little platypus rat with Stifler.
Oh my god.
Running.
It's a Niffler.
Yeah. Right, not a Stifler. Fuck. For any American Pie fans, it's a great reference.
Stifler the Niffler. Oh my god. Yeah, those guys. Those are cute. But yeah, I mean, there's no actual plot purpose to the beast just yet. I mean, in the first one, you kind of have the obscurial as kind of... and I enjoyed the first one as well. The whole Fantastic Beasts element to it. So my initial thought, this is going to be something like an ecological sort of story. Like, it's going to be kind of like National Geographic Planet Earth thing where we talk about plants and animals and how we live alongside them, and it's important to protect them and keep them safe, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like perfectly placed because Newt is going against the Ministry in trying to like protect all these endangered species and things like that, and not have them being hunted down because they're a threat to the Magic Society being safe from the No-Mages or being secret to them. But it's kind of being cast aside now, right? Because Newt is being thrown into this plot where his ethical standing of not being either a part of the good institution of the Ministry of Magic nor the evil institution of Grindelwald, that makes him the perfect candidate to like solve this problem of like Grindelwald is rising. Oh my god. Again, like, why him?
Yeah, well, there was the 4D. We had the 3D glasses on. No, in all seriousness, like the score for the movie was great by James Howard Shore.
No, it's James Newton Howard.
Because I was thinking of Howard Shore.
Yeah.
And okay. Well, anyway, it was with Howard.
It's close enough. You gotta have Howard in your name to do movie scores.
I think you have to. Either that or be called Hans. And many people who were even super harshly critical of the film liked a lot of the visual effects, and like the action part of it was quite good.
Yeah, it's stunning.
The beasts are when you see them, they're kind of nice. So they're pretty good. Yeah.
Is that it? I love it. I would say the acting is really good. I love Eddie Redmayne. Amazing again as Newt Scamander.
He's good. Yeah. Jude Law was great too.
Yeah.
Dumbledore.
They both have very unique takes on the two characters, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
I like Lita Lestrange. Say that like 5 times.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp playing Grindelwald. I know it's a big controversy and things like that, but I think he did a good job. He didn't bring the Johnny Depp flair to Grindelwald for me, but I think the way that the character was set up and the dialogue he was given set him up as a really good villain.
He's got the right look too, because he looks like a cat, and this time they dressed him up and he looks like a big sourpuss.
Yeah, it's very...
He's very creepy, and like he's kind of like a ghost.
Yeah, it was kind of dangerous feeling. Like, you felt like he would just all of a sudden just stare at you through the screen and come through and like rip your heart out. It was very scary.
I think it's because he doesn't look totally human. There's something that's
Yeah.
very different about him because he has like the sallow skin. He's got the mismatched eyes, and
Yeah.
his hair's
The
like
Draco hair.
yeah. So there was a lot of reveals in this movie, many of which confused even the most ardent Harry Potter fans.
Indeed. The whole exposition scene in the tomb with Lita Lestrange kind of revealing how she killed her brother and why she's so mopey all the time, basically. Honestly, it just really confused me. And we've only seen the movie once, right? So we're in no position to make theories and things like that. So I think the execution of that was kind of meh. It just kind of felt like an information dump. And again, with Aurelius Dumbledore, the reveal that Grindelwald makes at the end, that Credence is Aurelius Dumbledore, who's supposedly Albus's brother, does not make sense just yet. And it's beyond just frustrating, because frustrating is like, oh no, we have to wait till the next movie. But here, it just comes out of nowhere, you know?
And along those lines, there's also some Harry Potter references, meaning that there's references to the original series. My biggest point of bafflement was, why does McGonagall appear?
Yeah.
She is not that old. It feels like it's trying really hard to be like the original Harry Potter series, but it feels a lot more watered down. It's way too fast-paced. Relaying of information and what's important, combined with bombastically huge reveals, kind of cause you to be confused as to like what matters, what doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Again, I mentioned like the actual beasts themselves aren't a big part of it. There's this weird Nazi Germany allegory that's kind of running through this now, and we're now assuming that that is more important than the beasts themselves. So that is kind of weird. One, how does this all relate to Harry? Because they've made the decision basically to go back in time in this part of the Wizarding World, so like in the UK, basically.
Well, they started in the States, but they come back to like a European conflict.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of the families that make up who are going to Hogwarts in the present, which is the 90s, but anyway. So we want to see that some continuity there, but it's just not always clear why, how, who, what, where, when. Another thing that stood out too is that the magic is, in my view, it's kind of overused in some regards. Like there's that teleporting spell that is used, I swear, like 200 times.
Yeah.
And so it kind of devalues magic in a way, in that in the originals, and I'm making this comparison a lot here, I notice, for obvious reasons, because they were good. But it's like the forbiddenness and the delicateness and the lethality even of magic is kind of not felt that strongly, in my opinion. There's a sense that the character of Grindelwald is very lethal because he's the bad guy. It's not like the spells or the things that he's utilizing are kind of that important to making who he is. It's like he's a bad man.
Yeah.
Whereas Voldemort he's a bad guy, but he has all this kind of power to him that derives from the Horcruxes, the way he uses dark magic.
You're right. Like the Ministry keeps saying that they have to keep the magical society secret, but they're doing all this magic in the middle of the street. It just doesn't feel like there's any consequences to using magic, and so why wouldn't you use magic all the time then? And that's not the case in the Harry Potter original.
This leads to our next question, which is why go back in time in the first place? This is kind of one of my big ones as a history buff here. If they're choosing to go back in time, why not go back in time to for example, the founding of Hogwarts itself in the Middle Ages, right?
Yeah.
And see the 4 original house creators and stuff like that.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
Like, I almost want that as much as the Marauders in Generation.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
it's this weird placement where it's too far back for it to have any real resonance with Harry Potter himself. Like, for example, if it was the Marauders, obviously it would have a lot of impact on how we view Harry in the original.
Because it includes his father and like his friends.
Yeah, and his mom.
Dads and the mother as well.
Or, and they don't go back in time enough to be completely out of the Harry Potter influence. Like, for example, what you said with the Founding Fathers. Like, it would have more information to give us about Hogwarts itself.
At the same time, if they want to add a lot of depth to the world that J.K. Rowling's built, there's other schools that we can explore, and there's other regions of the world that we can explore.
Yeah.
This one, we do a little bit of America. In the Goblet of Fire, we actually see a little bit of that. There's references to Beauxbatons and to Durmstrang. I always, is it like Durmstrang or Durmstrang?
Yeah.
Schools that are in France, that are in Bulgaria. And it was interesting when we saw it in the Goblet of Fire, because you get the sense that, oh wow, this is actually way bigger. It's not just some castle in Scotland that's like the whole wizarding world of the entire planet. It's actually everywhere. Every culture, every country has their own place in it.
Yeah, and for all the world expanding that they try to do in the movie, I feel like they add too much in the second one. There's, as I mentioned, there's a lot of plots going on, a lot of characters.
It's overload.
Yeah, it's just overload. There were characters that didn't need to be introduced just yet, such as Yusuf Kama, and of course...
Who is this guy?
We don't even know yet. After he gets discovered by Newt and the gang, he just follows them around like, oh, hey,
God,
guys.
it's so weird.
Yeah, and he's like set up to be kind of this villain dude. I don't know. And then Nagini obviously is just a tag along to Credence, offering him support and things like that. So I guess in that way she offers something. Like, can you imagine if Credence had to go through this whole story by himself again? I think it would probably destroy him. And I think this really just feeds off of this trend that big production companies have nowadays, where they offer a lot of characters, a lot of exposition, a lot of interesting stuff, but they don't do anything with it in the middle movies.
Yeah, it's all to build to this big crescendo at the end, and usually it's not that great because they haven't developed it sufficiently for us to care, and we're just at the end going, can this fucking come to an end, please?
So again, it lends to that feeling that this movie can't be a standalone quality movie on its own. It has to be bookended for it to make sense. Because I think creatively it's lazy, to be fair. Because you're not making a cohesive story out of the information you've been given. All this rich information that J.K. Rowling has provided and is part of, because she's also part of the movie production as well.
Yeah. I mean, just to butt in here with the whole, it took them 7 books, 8 films to do the bad guy story of Harry Potter, the original series. Mm-hmm. They're trying to accomplish that in, like, there's already, he's revealed in the second one. Voldemort wasn't really a big deal, like actually a big deal, until Harry Potter, I'm gonna say like 4 or 5.
4, yeah.
Like,
4 or 5.
And by that point we're already halfway done. They're doing this in movie 2, and it's supposed to be like 2 of 5, which is really surprising to me that they're gonna try to pull off 5 of these movies, because I'm like, how long can they stretch out this whole story with them, right? Because we know what the ending is. If you go on Harry Potter wiki or whatever and see the encyclopedias of information they have, it's like, okay, we know that he's gonna end up going to Nuremberg prison.
Mm-hmm. Is that what it is?
No.
Is that a country?
Yeah. No, it's not. No, it's Nuremberg is apparently a reference to Nuremberg, which is where Nazis were tried at the end of World War
my
II.
God, that's such a direct reference.
Yeah.
Shit. Right, the Nuremberg trials.
Yes.
Ah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we know what happens to the bad guy here, but it's puzzling to me how they're going to make this stretch out for 5 movies, unless they're going to do something way out of left field, which is to take him out like in number 3, and then 4 and 5 maybe are about the actual animals.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting.
It's just like, what are they doing with it?
That would be really interesting. But the thing is, we don't know anything with this movie. It just opens up a whole can of worms and doesn't provide us with anything.
Number 3 for me will have to be, and leading into our final point about like where we anticipate this is going to go. I think number 3 is going to have to be, almost by definition, a lot slower, and there's going to be a lot more explanations of things. Yeah. And just frankly building on the current cast of characters because we have so many new ones. And a lot of the fans have talked about, it seems like there's a lot of assumptions on behalf of the people who have made the movie, like, oh, they know everything already. It's like, no, we don't. This is all quite new, frankly, to a lot of us.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see that we're a little frustrated with this thing because we're a bit more old school, you know? We like our movies to just be plain and simple and very interesting, very engaging, and explores the human sort of consequences of things, which we don't necessarily get just yet.
But anyway, time to take this diatribe. No. Again, we're big fans of the series, and this was a bit of a disappointment. For a lot of fans, it was. Like, for me, as a movie, this is like I'd say a solid 5 out of 10. It's not horrible. It's approaching something that can be good. It's just, we're really holding out that number 3 is going to be a lot better.
Yeah, I hope so too.
All right, lovely people, thank you for listening. And hopefully our future videos about the Harry Potter universe are going to be a lot more bubbly and warm. And
if you want to keep updated with what we're posting, you can follow us on our social media. So we're at High Fantasy Podcast on Instagram or at facebook.com/High Fantasy Podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening.
Toodaloo.
See ya.